The Los Angeles studio of The Night Pulse with Sarah Vega hummed with electric anticipation. Its sleek, modern design, a testament to the city's obsession with spectacle. 500 audience members filled the tiered seats. Their chatter a low buzz beneath the pulsing glow of LED lights that bathed the stage in a cool, almost clinical white. The set was a study in polished minimalism, a curved glass desk, a pair of low-back chairs, upholstered in charcoal gray, and a single, curious object at the desk's center, a silver medallion, 2 inches wide. Its surface etched with a cross, cradled inside a shattered circle. The symbol seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it, its edges worn smooth, as if touched by countless hands over decades. The air carried the faint scent of studio polish and coffee, mingling with the crowd's excitement as the show's theme music, a sharp, upbeat synth track, blared through hidden speakers, signaling the start of another live broadcast. Sarah Vega, the host, strode onto the stage with the confidence of a seasoned performer, her tailored navy blazer catching the light as she waved to the crowd. At 42, Sarah was a Los Angeles icon, her quick wit and megawatt smile making the night pulse a staple for insomniacs and pop culture enthusiasts across the U.S. Her dark hair was swept into a loose wave, and her gold hoop earrings glinted as she turned to the audience. Her voice, cutting through the applause with practiced ease. "Welcome to the Night Pulse, where we keep it real, raw, and just a little reckless," she declared, flashing a grin that invited laughter. The crowd roared, clapping on cue, their energy a living thing that filled the 10,000-square-foot studio. But tonight, something felt off a subtle dissonance, like a note played slightly out of tune. The light seemed too bright, the air a fraction too cool, as if the room itself were holding its breath. The music shifted, and Sarah turned to the stage's entrance, her voice rising with theatrical flair. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've got a legend in the house. Give it up for Keanu Reeves." The audience erupted, their cheers a tidal wave as Keanu stepped into the spotlight. At 60, he carried the quiet charisma that had made him a Hollywood enigma. His black leather jacket scuffed at the elbows, its worn texture a contrast to the studio's glossy sheen. His shoulder-length hair, streaked with gray, framed a face that was both familiar and unreadable. His dark eyes, holding a subtle unease that didn't match the crowd's enthusiasm. He raised a hand in acknowledgement, his lips curving into a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The applause continued, but a few in the front row exchanged glances, sensing something unspoken in his demeanor. Keanu crossed the stage with his trademark understated grace, his boots scuffing softly against the polished floor, a sound swallowed by the crowd's fervor. Sarah met him with a casual hug, her warmth genuine, but tempered by a flicker of curiosity as she caught the tension in his posture. "Keanu, my man, you're looking like you just stepped off the set of John Wick Eternal Badass vibes," she quipped, her voice light but probing, testing the waters. The audience laughed, expecting Keanu to lean into the joke, to offer the easy charm that had endeared him to millions. Instead, he nodded, the smile fading as he settled into the chair across from her, his hands folding briefly before resting on his knees. The crowd's laughter tapered off, replaced by a murmur of uncertainty. Sarah took her seat, leaning forward with the ease of someone who'd navigated countless interviews, her coffee mug emblazoned with Sarah in bold red letters, clinking softly against the glass desk. The medallion sat between them, its silver surface catching the light in a way that drew Keanu's gaze, his fingers twitching as if resisting the urge to touch it. Sarah followed his eyes, her brow arching slightly, but she pressed on, keeping the energy high. "So, Keanu, the world's been buzzing lately. Movies, politics, and, oh yeah, a new pope shaking things up in Rome. Cardinal Marco Bellini. Right, guy's got the Vatican in a tizzy already. You keeping up with that?" Her tone was playful, inviting Keanu to match her levity. But the question hung in the air, like a spark waiting to ignite. Keanu's gaze lifted slowly, meeting Sarah's with an intensity that made her smile falter. "Yeah," he said, his voice low, steady, but carrying a weight that silenced the room. "Bellini. There's something about him." The words were simple, but they landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples spreading through the audience. A woman in the third row clutched her purse tighter, her knuckles whitening. Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Her instincts kicking in as she leaned closer, her voice dropping a notch. "Okay, you're giving us chills already. Keanu, what's the deal? You got a spiritual take on the new pope? Or is this something else?" Keanu's eyes flickered to the medallion again, its etched cross seeming to pulse under the studio lights. He took a breath, as if steeling himself, and leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "It's not just Bellini," he said, his voice softer now, almost confessional. "It's what he represents, something I've been carrying for a long time." The audience was still, the usual rustle of programs and whispered side conversations absent. Sarah tilted her head, her curiosity now outweighing her showmanship. "Carrying like, metaphorically, or—" She gestured vaguely, trying to coax him back to familiar territory, but Keanu's gaze held steady, unyielding. "15 years ago," he began, his voice cutting through the silence. "I was in a rough place, lost, trying to figure out who I was outside the cameras. That's when I met Father James Callahan, a Vatican archivist who'd come to Los Angeles for a conference. He was different, not preachy, not judgmental. He saw something in me. Maybe something I didn't see myself." Keanu's fingers brushed the edge of the medallion, a fleeting touch, as if it held a memory. He became a mentor, a friend. He'd talk about stories, how they hide truths, how they reveal what people try to bury. One night, in a diner off Sunset Boulevard, he gave me this. He nodded toward the medallion, its silver glinting like a warning, said it came from a forgotten Vatican vault, told me to keep it safe, but never show it, not until the time was right. Sarah's eyes widened, her skepticism mingling with intrigue. "Okay, Keanu, you're dropping some serious mystery vibes here. A Vatican medallion from a priest. Why you?" The question echoed the audience's thoughts, their attention locked on Keanu as he leaned back, his expression unreadable. "That's what I've been asking myself for years," he said. "But last week, when Bellini was named Pope, it started to make sense. James warned me about a time when silence would speak louder than words. I think that time is now." The studio lights seemed to dim, though no one touched a switch. The medallion sat heavy on the desk, its shattered circle a silent challenge to the room's polished veneer. Sarah swallowed, her usual quick wit replaced by a cautious intensity. The audience, all 500 of them, leaned forward as one, caught in the gravity of Keanu's words. This wasn't the talk show they'd expected. This was something else, something that felt like a confession, a revelation, or perhaps a warning yet to be unveiled. Keanu leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly, the silver medallion glinting on the glass desk of the Night Pulse with Sarah Vega. The Los Angeles studio, its 500 audience members hushed, felt smaller now, as if the walls were leaning in to listen. "15 years ago," Keanu began, his voice steady but laced with a quiet urgency. "I was in New York, filming a movie. Father James Callahan, my mentor, asked to meet me at a hotel off Times Square, a small place. Maybe 20 stories. Nothing fancy. He was nervous, not like him. He handed me this medallion." Keanu tapped the 2-inch silver disc, its etched cross within a shattered circle catching the studio lights. He said, Keep it hidden until the silent one rises. I didn't know what he meant. Not until last week. When Cardinal Marco Bellini became Pope, the timing, it's no coincidence. Sarah Vega, her gold hoop earrings glinting as she tilted her head, arched a brow, her skepticism sharpened by years of navigating Hollywood's wilder stories. "Hold up, Keanu," she said, her voice a mix of intrigue and challenge. "You're saying a Vatican priest picked a movie star for some cryptic mission? Why not?" "I don't know. A bishop." The audience chuckled softly, but Keanu's gaze didn't waver. "James knew me," he said. "He said I could read the story behind the symbols because of how I approach acting, feeling the truth beneath the lines. He thought I'd see what others might miss." His words, earnest and unpolished, silenced the laughter, drawing the crowd deeper into his tale. Sarah leaned back, her fingers brushing her coffee mug, but her eyes stayed locked on Keanu. "Okay, that's intense. So, what's changed? Why bring this up now?" Keanu's jaw tightened, and he glanced at the medallion, its surface almost pulsing under the LEDs. "Since Bellini's election, I've been having a dream every night, the same one." His voice dropped, and the studio grew still. "I'm in Times Square. Dawn. Maybe 6 a. The billboards are dark, no ads, no lights. It's empty, no cabs, no people. Just me, standing by a subway entrance. Then I see him Bellini, in white papal robes, on the steps. The sun's rising, bright. But he casts no shadow. None. The air's cold, unnatural, like the city's holding its breath. The audience stirred, a woman in the front row gripping her program. Sarah's smile faded, her voice softer now. "No shadow that's eerie. Keanu. What's it mean?" He shook his head, eyes distant. "It's not just a dream. It feels like a signal. Like James warned me. Bellini's silence isn't peace, it's something else." The medallion seemed to gleam brighter, as if echoing his words, and the studio's air grew heavier, the mystery taking root. The studio lights of The Night Pulse with Sarah Vega flickered subtly, casting fleeting shadows across the glass desk where the 2-inch silver medallion rested, its etched cross within a shattered circle glinting like a silent accusation. Keanu Reeves, his face taut with quiet intensity, picked up the medallion, turning it over to reveal a Latin inscription, Silentium est signum. "Silence is the signal," he translated, his voice low, cutting through the Los Angeles studio's hush. "Last week, I found something else in my trailer, parked on a lot in Hollywood." He reached into his leather jacket, producing a yellowed 8x 10-inch parchment, its edges curling from age. "It's from James Callahan." His words, "When the shepherd's voice carries no echo, the truth will fade. Watch the one without shadow." Keanu's eyes met the audience's, the 500 spectators frozen. He meant Bellini. "I know it." Sarah Vega, her earlier skepticism softening, leaned forward, her gold hoop earrings catching the light. "Keanu, that's heavy. A letter from your mentor, hidden for years, pointing to the new pope. That's next level." Her voice held a mix of awe and doubt, mirroring the American audience's curiosity for conspiracies. Keanu nodded, his fingers tracing the parchment's weighty texture. "It's not just the letter," he said, his tone darkening. 2 days ago, I was at a cafe in Santa Monica, maybe 10 miles from here, grabbing coffee. A man in a gray coat sat across the patio, staring not at me, but through me. I approached him, but he was gone, like he vanished into the crowd. That night, at 2 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number. The text read, "Speak, and you'll be seen." A gasp rippled through the audience. A man in the back shifting uncomfortably, his chair creaking, Sarah's eyes widened, her hand pausing on her coffee mug. You're saying someone's watching you here in L? Keanu's jaw tightened. Not just me. I've heard stories notes like this turning up across the country. A librarian in Chicago found one in a book, saying, "The shadowless one leads." A teacher in Austin got a slip under her classroom door. "Silence is his crown." All since Bellini's election. The studio felt colder, the air thick with unspoken questions. Sarah leaned closer, her voice dropping. You're suggesting a network, like some secret group sending warnings about the Pope? Keanu's gaze flickered to the medallion. Not warnings. Signals. Someone or something wants us to notice Bellini, to see what he's not saying. The audience sat riveted, the parchment and medallion on the desk like relics of a hidden truth. The mystery coiling tighter in the Los Angeles night. The Los Angeles studio of the Night Pulse with Sarah Vega was a tomb of silence. The 500 audience members frozen as Keanu Reeves reached into his worn leather jacket, pulling out a faded 4x6-inch photograph, its edges softened by time. The glass desk, still bearing the 2-inch silver medallion, seemed to pulse under the LED lights. This came to my Malibu home last week. After Bellini's election, Keanu said, his voice low, deliberate. He laid the photo down, revealing Father James Callahan in a dimly lit Vatican room, mid-sentence, speaking to an unseen figure. In the background, Cardinal Marco Bellini stood, his eyes unnaturally sharp, staring directly at the camera lens. It came with a note, Keanu added, sliding a slip of paper forward. It says, "He sees through silence." The audience leaned forward, a woman in the front row clutching her purse, her knuckles white. Sarah Vega, her usual charisma dimmed, stared at the photo, her gold hoop earrings still as she absorbed its weight. "Keanu," she said, her voice trembling. "I've hosted this show for 12 years, and I've never felt a room this heavy." She leaned closer, her eyes searching his. "Why now? Why bring this to us?" The question mirrored the audience's growing unease, their breaths shallow, in the cavernous 10,000-square-foot studio. Keanu's jaw tightened. "Because I can't stay silent anymore. James trusted me to see what others wouldn't. This photo, it's not just evidence. It's a warning." He leaned back, his gaze distant, and continued. "The dream I told you about. In Times Square, it's changed." His voice dropped, the studio's air thickening. "Last night, I was there again, dawn, the billboards dark. Bellini stood on the subway steps, in white, no shadow. But now, there's a sound, a faint whisper in Latin, non est umbra, there is no shadow." He raises his hand, and the ground trembles, like an earthquake felt 10 miles away. The air turns cold, sharp, like winter in New York. It's not a dream anymore. It's a premonition. The audience stirred, a man in the back shifting, his chair creaking in the silence. Sarah's hand hovered over her coffee mug, forgotten, as she whispered, "A premonition of what?" Keanu's eyes met hers, then flicked to the camera, piercing the lens. "Something's coming." Bellini's silence isn't peace, it's a signal, hiding something bigger. The photo lay stark on the desk, Bellini's gaze seeming to follow the room, unnervingly alive. Sarah swallowed, her voice barely audible. "You're scaring us, Keanu." He nodded, his expression unyielding. "Good. Maybe that's what James wanted for us to feel it, to question it." The medallion glinted faintly, as if echoing his words, and the studio felt less like a stage and more like a crucible where truth was being forged. Oh, the Los Angeles studio of the Night Pulse with Sarah Vega was a frozen tableau. The 500 audience members holding their breath as the weight of Keanu Reeves's words settled over the 10,000-square-foot space. The glass desk, bearing the 2-inch silver medallion with its etched cross in a shattered circle, seemed to anchor the room's tension, its faint glint under the LED lights, like a beacon in the growing silence. Keanu, his leather jacket creased from leaning forward, sat back, his dark eyes scanning the audience, then settling on Sarah Vega, whose usual charisma had dissolved into a quiet intensity. The 4 or 6-inch photograph, showing Father James Callahan speaking in a Vatican room, with Cardinal Marco Bellini's unnerving gaze piercing the camera, lay stark between them, a relic of a truth too heavy to dismiss. The air felt charged, as if the studio itself were waiting for what came next. Keanu's voice, low and steady, cut through the hush. "Father James Callahan told me something years ago, in that diner off Sunset Boulevard," he said, his fingers brushing the medallion's edge. "He said silence can hide truth, but speaking it might cost everything." He paused, his gaze shifting to the camera, piercing the lens as if addressing each viewer in their living room, thousands of miles away. "I've carried this for 15 years," his words. "This medallion. That dream of Bellini in Times Square, shadowless, with the ground trembling like an earthquake 10 miles out. I could have stayed quiet, but I chose to speak." His phone, resting on the desk, buzzed sharply, its screen lighting up with a new text from an unknown number. "You spoke. They see you now." The camera caught it, the words stark against the black background, and a collective gasp rippled through the audience. A woman, in the front row clutching her purse so tightly, her knuckles whitened. Sarah, her gold hoop earrings still, stared at the screen, then at Keanu. "Is this happening right now?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the cavernous studio. Keanu didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, then back to the camera, his expression unyielding yet vulnerable. "James believed we'd face a moment where truth hangs in the balance," he said. "He thought I'd see it not because I'm special, but because I know stories, how they hide what's real." Bellini's silence. "These signals, they're not just about him. They're about what we do when we see something wrong, something hidden, in any system, any place." He leaned forward, his voice softening but firm. "What would you choose to speak, even if it costs you, or to stay silent, safe but complicit?" The studio, lights flickered, not a planned effect, casting fleeting shadows across the glass desk. The medallion glinted faintly, as if catching light from an unseen source, its shattered circle a silent challenge. Sarah, speechless for the first time in her 12-year career, stared at Keanu, her coffee mug forgotten. The room no longer felt like a talk show set. It was a confessional, a courtroom, a place where something ancient had been stirred, its presence pressing against the polished walls. The audience sat motionless, the weight of Keanu's question settling into their bones. A man in the back shifted, his chair creaking, the sound sharp in the silence. Keanu's words carried deeper lessons, ones that resonated with the American spirit of courage and questioning authority. "Life teaches us to listen to the gaps," he said, his voice almost a whisper now. "The things not said, the spaces between answers, they tell the real story. James taught me that truth isn't just in words, it's in what's left out. Whether it's a pope, a leader, or someone in your own life, you have to ask, what are they hiding and what does it cost you to ignore it?" He tapped his chest, just once, over his heart. "I learned that staying silent might keep you safe, but it buries who you are. Speaking up, even when it's terrifying, is how you stay human." He paused, his eyes sweeping the audience, then the camera. "I don't know what's next," he admitted. "Maybe I've said too much. Maybe they're watching right now." The text on his phone screen lingered in the audience's mind, a chilling reminder of the stakes. But I know this truth matters. It's worth the risk. And I hope you'll think about what you'd do in my place. The studio remained still. The medallion's glint, a final punctuation, as if it held the weight of Callahan's warning and Keanu's choice. Sarah found her voice. Barely. Keanu. I don't even know what to say. This is bigger than any show we've done. She turned to the audience, her eyes wide. You all felt that, right? A murmur of agreement rippled through, tentative but real. Keanu nodded slightly, a faint smile breaking through. Not of triumph, but of gratitude. Thank you, he said, addressing the crowd and the viewers at home. For listening, for being here. If this story means something to you, if it makes you think, share it. Hit that subscribe button for the Night Pulse. Sarah's team deserves it for giving me this space. He glanced at Sarah, who managed a shaky smile, and added, keep asking questions. Keep looking for the truth. The studio lights flickered again, the medallion catching one last glint, as if winking at the unseen. The room felt alive, charged with the weight of a truth laid bare. Keanu sat back, his hands folded, the photograph and medallion silent witnesses to his choice. Sarah, still reeling, looked out at the audience, then the camera, and said, We're out of time. But no one moved, caught in the gravity of a moment that demanded reflection, courage, and a choice.